Welcome back to Strictly Money. Well, we just discussed the employment picture in Canada. Now, if you're looking for a pay bump or thinking about switching jobs and need some advice, stay put because Michelle Slater is also from Indeed and she has some tips for you. Michelle, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me today.
So we just talked to your colleague, Brendon, about the state of the job market. Surprisingly, still very strong, starting to see a few cracks, some worries about recession. And it leads me to this point, right? A lot of people are wondering, is this the right time to negotiate a pay raise? Because on one hand, you have inflation. On the other hand, you might be concerned that you could get laid off. What's your advice? Like, what are you seeing right now?
Well, for a lot of people who are in the world of work, we're coming right up to the end of Q3. And quite honestly, December and the end of the year is going to be here before we know it. And this is the great time really to prepare for that end of year performance review or end of quarter performance review. It is never a bad time to ask for a bump in your income. And the most important thing, though, if you are going into that conversation, is you be prepared and have all of the information at your fingertips before you go into that negotiation with your manager. I've got 4 tips to share with you.
And yeah, we're going to bring up that board, Michelle.
That's great.
Yeah, there we go.
The first one is really to determine what your value is and do a little bit of research as to what other individuals that have the same type of role or a similar type of role that you might have. And in order to do that, I always say, start with a piece of paper, write down all the things that you've achieved in the last 6 months, the last year, the things that you've actually brought and contributed to the company. Think about any of the additional education that you've gone through, some of the licenses and certificates that maybe you've achieved, the soft skills that you bring to those conversations at work as well, the leadership abilities, and anything that you've brought to the table that you've gone above and beyond. Writing all of that down really does help you determine what your worth is. And Indeed actually has very much encouraged people who are posting jobs to put some pay bands out there to be very transparent about pay. So it's a great way to do a little bit of research is to have a quick peek on Indeed and look for jobs that are similar to what you do. And that gives you an idea of what that salary range could be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Which leads me to the next point, and then we'll bring up the board again, right? You said practice, which actually leads to building confidence.
Most definitely. These conversations are sometimes pretty awkward to have with your manager. I know myself going into them, I always feel a little bit nervous. But if you do a bit of practice and you've got those prep points pulled together, it makes it a lot easier. Whether it's with a trusted friend, a mentor, somebody in your life that you can bounce these ideas back and forth with, it means that when you go into that conversation with your manager, you project a sense of confidence. You go into it with strength. You go into it with an idea of really how to negotiate effectively. And that trusted friend or that mentor can give you a lot of feedback of the words to use, the words to avoid, some of the things that you might be stumbling on, and can kind of be that bit of tough love if you need it. We all need a little bit of help, right?
Absolutely. And Michelle, the last point, stay flexible, but know when to say no, right? If you're negotiating a pay hike at a company you're at, is the idea to ask for other things in case you don't get a pay hike?
Yeah, I mean, the compensation package that all of us get includes, of course, our pay that we receive weekly, biweekly, monthly, but it also includes paid time off, health, medical benefits, some extra flexibility potentially in the hours that you work or your location of your job. It's important to think about what's you care about. And there are other ways that you can kind of increase your compensation without it being directly in your bank account. And you look at and think about what's important to you. For each and every one of us, it's a little bit different. But going into that negotiation and thinking about what is important to you, where are you willing to give, what's your hard line, makes it a much easier conversation, and you can go into it with a position of strength.
Yeah. Michelle, we only have 40 seconds till the commercial break. Is it ever a good idea to threaten to leave?
Well, I've got a couple of mixed opinions about that. The first thing is it's a very small world out there. And if you make a threat to leave and you don't have anything else to go to, that word can spread in the industry that you work in. So that can sometimes tarnish your image. And then also, if the employer says yes, well, then it might be again awkward in your future conversations with your manager. So I think it depends on the individual. It's not
Yeah.
something that I would do personally myself, but that for some people, they feel that that's the only way they can get what they
And
want.
that's the hard line. Yeah.
It sure
Michelle, we're
is.
going to take a quick break and we'll be back in 2. Welcome back. We've been talking about negotiating one's salary. Michelle, should you always take the first offer that's given to you? And I ask this because I've been on both sides of the table. And as someone who has given an offer, I always expect them to negotiate, at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting parodies and some interesting examples of men versus women. And for women, we're often like, this is great. I got the job of my dreams. I'm so excited. But you need a chance to take a moment, to take that sober second look, have a good night's sleep, look at what the offer is, and then think about what is your true worth. And is it actually what your value is? There is nothing wrong with pushing back a little bit, asking for additional income, extra days off, paid days off, of course. Some other things that you might want in terms of flexibility, the worst the employer can say is, no, this is my final offer. I've never heard of a company taking that offer away and pulling it back and say, no, we don't want you because you're
Yeah.
not willing to accept the terms of the offer. Men have a tendency, and again, I don't really like to fall into the gender norms too much, but men have a tendency to push hard and ask for what they're looking for. And I really encourage women who are listening to the program is to lean in. You're worth more than what you can imagine. And there's nothing wrong with asking for a little bit more, negotiating for maybe a starting bonus or a higher level of income and some extra benefits.
Yeah, I think you raise a very important point. It's certainly a discussion that I have with a lot of women is, and men, frankly, negotiate, know your worth, because you want that first jump in, right? Instead of having to negotiate while you're working as well. For those who are watching that may feel vulnerable right now, that their job could be terminated, how do they prepare themselves? Let's. I know we have a board, so let's talk about some of these points that you have.
Yeah, first off, for anybody who is thinking that they may go through a layoff or who's just recently gone through a layoff, my heart goes out to you. It's a really stressful time and it can be a very emotional journey. But there's a couple of things for you to think about. And the first one I talk about is to think about what you really like about your job. What's important to you? And I always get out again that pen and paper, write down what do you like about what you currently do? What gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning? And conversely, what do you hate about your current job? And all of us have those elements that, are really make you not so happy at work. And then that helps you identify where do you want to go next and what type of job could you apply for that will give you that ability to lean into what gives you joy at work. And the next thing is a lot of us have a resume and haven't looked at it in years and years and years.
Yeah.
So get prepared ahead of time. It takes some time to update a resume and make sure it reflects the current things that you've accomplished. You may want to actually run it by a trusted mentor as well. Second set of eyes helps to catch any of those little grammatical errors, spelling mistakes, and makes your resume a lot stronger.
And networking. I think this one is also very important. And I say that because I don't think we should ever underestimate the fact that, people hire people that they're familiar with or that someone can actually vouch for them.
Mhm. Many of us don't like networking. It kind of seems as treated like a bad word, but networking doesn't mean that you're standing at a cocktail party handing out your business card. Networking means that you've made some friends, either in the current job you work in, maybe it's within your industry, it could be joining an industry association. And it can also just be reaching out to your friends and family in your community and getting to know them. I know for me, it's, some of the volunteer work I've done has been incredibly powerful of opening up doors that I never thought were possible. So it doesn't have to be the traditional type of networking of these are my skills and this is what I can contribute and I'm looking for a new job here. But building those relationships means that if you do need to reach out to that trusted network for some career guidance, maybe some tips on finding a new job. Maybe they've got openings in their company. It just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And would you say, don't wait? Like this is something that should be sort of ongoing, right?
It should be,
Yeah.
because it's like asking a favor of your neighbor, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to wait till, the basement's flooded for help.
Right.
It's best to start and to do this on a regular ongoing basis. And it starts to form a bit of a habit. And it's
Right.
nice to be able to go out for lunch with somebody or to be able to connect. And sometimes in the world of work, you never know where the next opportunity is going to come from.
Absolutely. Michelle, we really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Michelle Slater of Indeed. Well, that wraps up this episode. If you have thoughts or questions about today's show, drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay well, stay wise, and stay wealthy.